Greetings, Casey. So good to see you, meet you, and thank you so much for your time and allowing me to have this collaboration and pick your brain about different modalities of knowledge that you've been researching probably for much longer than I did.
Absolutely.
So, so if I may be a little push it, can you tell me because I don't have much information about you? Like, can you tell me about your journey? How did you get into all this very super deep knowledge about physical body, that what is our physical body is capable of, like what, what, what can we do, when did it all started for you?
At birth
Oh,
is, is the short answer. That's when it started for us all, right? But I think what you
okay,
mean is with the out of body experience. And so that started in 2009, in the summer of 2009.
okay.
I had been exploring states of consciousness for decades prior to this. I'd come in through spiritual disciplines, the Yana lineage, Atma Vichara is the question, who am I? And
Interesting.
yoga, standard meditation,
Okay.
and the like. So I was teaching. Actually, I had culminated to the point where I was living nearby my own spiritual teacher at that point and was teaching myself when in 2009 it happened.
uh, so tell me exactly what did 2009 happen, like do you
Mm.
understand yourself now, like what did trigger you to?
There were a few things that had started happening previously to
Okay.
when I began going out of body. So I was experiencing some physical phenomena in physical space. And one of those
Uh-huh.
phenomena were getting hot feet at night.
Oh, oh
So a
wow.
couple hours before I would lay down to go to bed each night, my feet would just start getting insanely hot.
Wow.
And I had no idea what was going on. Uh,
Okay.
it was really bad. It got to the point where I would have to wake up and ice my feet multiple times through the night. And
Wow.
what this ended up being was the beginning stages of my awareness of Kundalini energy.
Hot energy rising from the bottom up.
Uh, no, not specifically, just Kundalini energy, and where I was feeling that Kundalini energy, where I could um, cognize the fact that I was feeling it was in my feet. And I have no idea why
What was exactly in the
those
feet?
details were
Not in the fingertips of. Interesting. Oh,
necessary in my case, but yeah, that's just how it went. And so Mm. I had started the practice of sleeping on the floor
okay.
because it was
That's what I
cooler.
do. It's really good for the spine. That is really good for
It
the
is, but
spine.
that wasn't why. It was just cooler down on the floor.
Ah,
And
is it
the
hot? Is it hot in California where you are? Like hot area to live?
it's pretty temperate. Yeah, not
Okay.
too hot, not too cold. At that time, I'm from Las Vegas, and at
Okay.
this time, I'm still in Las Vegas.
You are.
But
Okay.
we had
Big
tile
city.
floors in our house and Spanish tiles. And so I would sleep down on the floor and just be right there to where I could
Wow.
just slip my feet off of the carpet onto the tiles. And yeah, so in 2009, in the summer of 2009, what happened was I was on the floor. I was getting ready to go to sleep. Um, and an interesting thing had begun happening uh, just prior. I would I was beginning to have cognition of the events that were already occurring. Uh, the events were already occurring. I just wasn't holding on to the cognition of the fact that they were, sort of like when you wake up from a dream and for a second you remember it and then it's gone. Something like
Uh-huh.
this. And
Interesting.
so
Have
what
you
was
done any
happening,
like physical practices before all this stuff? And by the way, do you still practice any yoga, physical yoga
Oh yeah.
at this
Mhm.
time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. Um, shall I continue that story, or did you have another track?
Well, I have a question. Do you have one on your chest?
What's
Is
that?
it a necklace? The moonstone on your chest?
Ah, yeah, it's they sell it as moonstone, but really it's white labradorite.
Ah, that's what it is.
Hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard it's a really good feminine stone that helps the energies to be balanced. Good. Um,
Yeah.
do I have any questions? I only have like 5 or 6 questions, but they're really like maybe not about the blue, not about the out of body experience. So maybe you can continue. Tell me, what did you get the most out of these experiences? Like, can you, by the way, can you bring anything physical out of this uh, out of body? Like, I've heard, correct me if I'm wrong, I've heard that out of body experience is the first step towards getting to the level where you can actually dematerialize your physical body and materialize it in other places. So
Mhm.
you have to play with this step to learn the consciousness movement before you actually can dematerialize yourself fully and be
Mhm.
somewhere else fully. It's a first step. Is that correct?
I would say yes, and I would also say that that is a on our docket
Okay.
as part of what we're doing. Um, in the beginning, when this started, let me just take us for a moment right back to where I was sleeping on
Sure.
the floor, beginning to cognize the onset of this occurring,
Uh-huh.
because this is a really important juncture. What I discovered
Okay.
through all of this was that all of these things had been occurring all along. And if they had been occurring all along with me, they have been occurring all along with us all. And
Okay.
so reaching that point where you're able to finally cognize and hold on to the cognition of what's happening and ride that wave for a period of time. In my case, it was 4 years. I rode the wave for 4 years, going out of body, near daily, near nightly. So for an
So it's a
extended period,
remembrance. Before you went
well,
out, remember 2002, you went out remember it, and 2009, and then after 2009, you started to fully remember it.
almost.
Okay.
Prior, it was happening, but I wasn't cognizing the fact that it was happening. So there's a little bit of a difference between this and remembering. It's
Mm,
happening, and I'm not cognizing that it's happening. And then I move to the point where, or my inner self moves me, its ground level player, to the point where it's able to cognize for moments, like seconds.
mm,
And that's what's happening in the night when I moved down to the floor to sleep. And this is important as well because our bed is something that we use mostly to sleep. And so
right.
it's very challenging to begin to cognize while you're still in your bed because you go there routinely to not be awake, but to sleep. So moving to the floor was a critical step. It was somewhere than where I normally slept. So here's where my cognition begins to grow.
Mm.
And
That's so interesting. You triggered me. Can I interrupt you just for a second? I have this
sure.
lady, neighbor. She only has 3 rooms. You know, she lives in a small apartment, and in every room she has a TV. And then she's using one TV the most, the one in the bedroom. That's why she also uses it for food. She eats. So a few months ago, she asked me, like, I have insomnia. I was like, well, get rid of the TV. Don't eat in the bed. And she thinks I'm joking. And I showed her on the internet there's other good people telling you don't watch TV in the bed because you're supposed to only sleep in the bed. And they also say you can have sex in the bed, if you want to reproduce, but you're only supposed to sleep in the bed, and that's it. But she eats, and then she cannot sleep. She tells me sometimes a full night she would not sleep. So that's how insane humanity is right now. So sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead now.
Well, we develop some poor habits, sure.
Yeah.
But the habit of getting into the bed to sleep, is of course the common course of action
Yeah.
in contemporary society. So moving to a place that's not where you normally go to sleep can begin to wake the conscious mind up in those additional waves, when your brain waves are processing through those alphas, thetas, and deltas, um,
Mm,
the conscious mind is more apt to be able to stay awake. This is one of the reasons the yoga mat is so critical, or
yeah,
your
it's
meditation
interesting you say that.
space,
Because
right?
that's happening to me now because I'm asking myself, wow, in the last few years, I do sleep on the floor, but sometimes I'm picky. I was like, today I'm going to sleep in the kitchen. I was like, why in the kitchen? So weird. And then I'm going to be in the living room. Then I'm going to be in the music room. Then in the bedroom. So I travel. I never had a chance to sleep in a hallway, but I
Mhm.
traveled through many different rooms. Wow.
Really,
Interesting.
it can be anywhere, even right there in the bed. Normally, you sleep with your head at the head of the bed. So, like in the
Yeah.
morning, if you're going to do a wake back to bed to do a practice to go out of body, just simply put your head down at the foot of the bed. It's a position that you're not normally in. Even something as minute as that can begin to, trigger more awareness.
Yes. Interesting. Wow.
Let's come back down to the floor. And what's happening in the middle of the night as I'm beginning to cognize these things. For these moments, I'm being woken up in there to this sensation of being lightly electrocuted physically.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it's me waking up in my physical space and feeling the K energies through my physical body. But literally, me being so tired, I just sort of go, huh, and then fall right back to sleep.
Mm.
And this happens multiple times in the course of a single week, to the point where I cognize when I wake up that it had happened in the night, not just once, not just twice, but 3 times, and begin speaking about it with other people in physical space, asking, have you ever experienced anything like this? And so now I'm grounding this awareness in physical space, grounding it in my ground level awareness by speaking about it with other people. And this is growing the whole thing more open. And so
Okay.
it didn't take long, maybe another week. During that week, I had 2 episodes of missing time, also from the night. So I'm a
Wow.
dreamer. I, prior to this, routinely remembered my dream state as it began at the top of the night all the way to the bottom of the night. And so there was a sense of time when I had woken up, because there's that sense of and the awareness that you had been dreaming, right? But for
Mm.
2 nights in a row, I laid myself down, I closed my eyes. I never fell asleep. If you asked me, I never fell asleep. And what seemed to
Hmm.
me 5 minutes later, opened my eyes and it was morning. That
Wow.
happened twice. So these 2 episodes of missing time. Now I know something's going on. Something strange is going on here.
Yeah. Something very
No,
strange going on Earth.
none of this is normal, right? And then in my meditations, which were Shavasana meditations, Shavasana was a main practice of mine. I began bilocating. So I would notice when I was coming out of my practice that my eyes would be closed. I could not locate myself in the room. I couldn't remember where I had laid myself down. And it
Wow.
was fun for me to try to, with my mind, find myself in the room. And, you know, and even which room I was in, or was it day or was it night? Through the course of the practice, I had sufficiently traveled to the point that when I got back, I didn't recall.
Wow.
And in searching for myself in the room, still in the meditative state, I noticed that I was in more than one location in the room.
Wow.
And
Multiple
so,
Casey.
like, I'd be laying down on my yoga mat on the floor, and realizing that I also had a perception up there on the ceiling looking down, as an example.
Right.
And that began
It's,
happening. And
so
so I
by the way,
began exploring that.
Shavasana translates as a corpse pose, I believe, from
Mm,
the Sanskrit. So you're
yes.
traveling from that standpoint. Interesting. Um, have you ever heard of Ashayana work? I mean, she went to this program in 2012. What is her name? Carrie Cassidy with Project Camelot. Have you ever heard of Ashayana? She was talking about
Ashayana Dean.
Ashayan. Yeah, Ashayan. Yeah. She
Sure.
talked about this black holes and wormholes, which is coming from the negative point of technology, black holes and wormholes, and there is a positive technology where is stargates, which is beautiful, living, continuous, infinite systems. So there are two different systems. One has finality in it, death in it, and the one it's infinite. So I've been researching during my meditation, like what is going on Earth, like what is the sun, what is the moon, and then I thought to myself, like yesterday, it was this idea. Maybe you can collaborate with me on this idea. Years ago, when I was teaching and practicing yoga in New Jersey, I have heard from somewhere that any sound, when you raise the vibration of that sound 40 octaves higher, that's a lot, 40 octaves, because I think the piano is only like, few octaves. But if you raise any sound, like right now we're using the sound of our voices, we have to
Mhm.
speak to each other because we're not telepathic yet. So when we raise a sound, it becomes the light. Sound becomes the light. And also, there was a statement that the sun, sun, which is the brightest object in the sky, nothing can shine as bright as the sun. No stars, no moon can outshine the sun. So they claim that sun within itself, it's actually such a beautiful technology. It's an infinite. Uh, it's shining resonance for all living beings. And they mean all of them. Robotoids, humanoids, plants, animals. Everybody loves the sun. The cat and the dog will be laying on the sun, receiving their own vibration frequency at that tune that they are achieved. Like, for example, at that time, I was eating meats still, so I was vibrating probably much, much lower. So now I don't eat meats, so I'm probably resonate higher, but the sun is still there for me. I still see it, I still feel it, and I love it. It gives me that sound living vibration. It's healing. It's very healing. And there's also a moon, which is cool technology. It's actually probably a Death Star, like in the movie Star Wars. They were describing this silverish. It's actually everywhere. It's like in the Matrix. You can see, that glowing silverish moon when it comes up the second time to trick Neo. And if you fail, it's asking him like, what if you fail? If I, and Neo's like, oh, I'm not gonna fail. I'm gonna kill myself within this matrix, and everything's gonna be pitchy. So the moon is very tricky. It's a cool technology. So my question to you is it possible to go in a wormhole, in a black hole, not knowing that there's also a sun and the stargates? The
It's a
difference.
good question. And I have to tell you, starting off, that there's two ways to do your awakening: top down or bottom up. Bottom up is how most people do their awakening. And
Hmm.
they start in physical space and move from the physical space, or the exterior of reality, we could say, in. And there's others who go top down. I'm a top down, so I'm an inside out explorer. And it means that I don't use wormholes, I use consciousness.
Mm.
I go directly to consciousness. And can I
Do you think
travel
sun is a pure consciousness? Sun is a pure unconditioned consciousness, right?
through? Everything
I'm
is
gonna.
conscious.
Oh, I don't have it. Oh, I wish I had this picture to show. Okay.
Yes, everything is consciousness. And we don't even have to delineate or distinguish one consciousness from another consciousness. What I mean is, I just use consciousness. I don't use uh, physical things, let's say.
Hmm.
Okay, so when I'm going to go out, I'm going to go into a meditative state. I'm going to follow the brain waves as they repattern and restructure themselves into something that is highly theta. And in this process, my perception is going to turn inside out. I'm no longer going to feel as though I am a point inside a larger space, but that I am a larger space inside which there is this point. And so that's how I'm able to go out. And
Hmm.
that's what I mean by using consciousness itself. So
So
when
from the
I've
bottom
gone
up,
out,
so basically from the crown chakra, which is they trying to block now with coronavirus and all that shenanigans, also putting stuff in the nose with the swabs to contaminate the brain and make us kind of fuzzy and not connecting to the source.
right, we're talking about the factions here.
Yeah,
Or in other words, the control system, the 3D control system. And yeah, it's important to not rail against the 3D control system. It's necessary for a 3D experience to take place. But most people want to go to fight against it and sort of get lost in all of that. What I would say is drop it. Just like a dog with a bone, drop it. First find out who you are.
you are a teacher, and I also can see and sense that your channels have been shadow banned, just like mine. Do you feel like your channels are shadow banned? You're not visible on the internet space?
Uh, Not on YouTube, if that's what you mean. I'm not on any other social media. I have sites up in one place, but that I've vacated about a year ago.
Right. Yeah, I used to have
Yeah.
a website in New Jersey and I was teaching yoga and I was so into it. And then I was like, wait a minute, they are blocking me on Facebook. My website is invisible. And now I'm doing this YouTube Beat Shoot Odyssey and it's
Mhm.
shadow banned big time. Like to the point like I cannot comment.
So we're
Wow.
talking about the general population
Yeah.
in a sense. 3D is a consensus space, and it's a consensus space for third dimensional experience. It is a third dimensional curriculum, and there is a control system in place to see that it remains a 3D experience space.
Right.
And thank goodness, right? Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to come in
It's
and have a 3D experience. What I'm going to try to do is
yeah,
I'm going to try to shift your brainwave frequencies, and let me see if you'll follow me. Let me see if I can give you a frequency following response that you'll attempt to follow. And what this will do is it will just show you another pattern through which to see the reality that you're talking about right now. Because there's many patterns to use to see it, and the more patterns you have at your disposal, the better off you are. One of
okay.
the constrictions to 3D physical space isn't they trying to do anything to us. It is ourself holding ourselves in our own holding patterns. And
Right. I get it. Totally
if
get
we'll
it.
see that first, then we can observe with more accuracy they to get any kind of data we feel may be helpful to us. But usually it's done in a different way. It's only seen with a pattern that's very narrow and judgment based. And that in itself is what's holding people in 3D space. That's what's got to go. And it's
Got
that
it.
beta
Got it.
brainwave, it's that living out of your sympathetic nervous system, not even understanding that there is a parasympathetic nervous system, what it is, or how to get to it. And so that's what I feel is really important to talk to people about right now, and to
Yeah.
get people out of the sympathetic nervous system, which is fight flight mode, daily survival, make enough money to eat and not enough money to take care of yourself or do anything else or
Yeah.
really look at reality, right? That's that strong locked beta wave survival mode. That's
Yes.
your sympathetic nervous system. And it's important for us to have, but and to employ, uh, but it's important that we don't live out of it. We're not meant to live out of the sympathetic nervous system. We're meant to live out of the
Yeah.
parasympathetic. And so here
Can
we move
can I
into the
can I interrupt
idea.
you just for a second? Can I interrupt you for a second? The Yogi Bhajan, you probably heard of him. I think he's already passed away, but he was very present in California. He was showing this exercise to put the thumbs on the temples, which is interesting. Who is in the temple? The God, the Most High, the brain. And the thumbs, when you squeeze the jaw rhythmically, will jump slightly on these muscles. So you do this exercise for 10 minutes, squeezing the jaw muscles and holding the thumbs on your temples. And 10 minutes, they will regulate your, I'm not sure if it's sympathetic or parasympathetic nervous system, but it's really, really good exercise because the jaw, when you chew the food, actually sends oxygen into the brain. So I tell all my friends, please do this exercise if you have any kind of insomnia, sleep, any brain issues. It's really, really good for nervous system. But I'm not sure. I think it's parasympathetic. It's not sympathetic. It's only parasympathetic. So have you heard of this exercise, Yogi Bhajan?
Yes, I've heard of Yogi Bhajan. Yes, I've heard of the exercises.
Okay.
Again, the sympathetic is your fight flight mode. So somebody's there with a gun in front of you, and your sympathetic nervous system gets activated so that you can either run or fight or whatever it is you're going to do. Right?
Yeah.
Your parasympathetic nervous system is rest mode. And in the parasympathetic nervous system, your brain waves are touching that alpha spectrum of wave. Things slow down. Okay,
Mm.
so a really easy way to get yourself into the parasympathetic nervous system is to work at lengthening the breath to where you have at least an 8-second inhale and 8-second exhale. If you're inhaling to 8, exhaling to 8, then you're going to feel the change. You start relaxing the body and things slow down and you feel more calm. And this is where we're meant to live, the parasympathetic. So if we can just get to the
Cool.
parasympathetic, and from the parasympathetic observe 3D physical space, um, we'll be in a place where we are able to receive guidance from the other side of the veil. It's literally right there at our back body when our brain waves are in alpha, and be directed, much more easily through the space.
Mm. Interesting. I actually read the book before I left New Jersey, and it was written by a woman. And right now I'm speaking to you, I was like, what if this is a woman who wrote this book? It was a beautiful colored book with a seashell, like galaxies and cosmos represent this seashell. And in that book, this lady is describing our reality here. She's like, at this point, some of you might not appreciate what you have, but we are looking at you with sense of a little jealousy because your experience is fun. You know, the time lineage, the hardness of materializing things. It takes time to materialize, or Lamborghini or Mercedes Benz or a nice vacation. But it is actually a fun experience. And I was like, wow, that's interesting perspective because it's a point of view, like not a lack, but it's just wonderment. Like, go play. This earth is this. It's not a shithole. It's just a fun game to play. So I don't know if you have any books that you have written.
Not yet.
Not
But
yet.
you did
Okay.
ask if I was able to bring anything back into physical space. And so,
Yes.
right there with that question, let me mention this. Um, yes.
Oh, you did. Yes,
And
you did.
what I brought back was an ability, and it is an ability wherein I combine my consciousness with crystal,
Okay.
and I'm actually able to transfer the contents of my awareness through the crystal, photograph it for other people to see. What I bring through is the beings in galactic space.
Oh, wow.
And this can be seen on my website. I have a website, consciousnessexploration.com, and on there you'll see a page called The Beings. And this is the crystal work. There's a video there that explains in a little bit of detail what I do there and how I do this, and endless um, ET portraits is what I call them.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Do
yes,
you
you
have
you
do you
can
have
bring back.
do you have other versions of yourselves pictured? Like do you ever meet yourself other versions in parallel realities? Is that something is
Principally,
possible?
that's principally what I meet. Yes, it's principally what we all meet, really. But yeah, when I go out of body, I'm never Casey. When I go
Mm.
out of body, I'm somebody else. You know,
And it's always different or the same?
always. It's never been the same yet, and I have
Oh,
thousands of
oh,
experiences under my belt. Yeah.
oh, wow. It's amazing. So can we say at the very highest end I'm not sure if you research the Upanishads and all the spiritual teachers, and probably most religions, that if you skip through the BS and get to the core, that you're
Mm.
supposed to wake up to the one single God mind. So we're supposed to let go of our self, ego, and attachments, realize that we are not this body, emotions, and thoughts, and connect to that ultimate one single source. And when you do that, that's the highest of the highest of the highest.
And
Because
I would call that consciousness. And that's also
yes,
what I mean when I say the way I go out is via consciousness,
right,
not wormholes or constructs or things like this. So I mean, in the same way that I connect my consciousness with the consciousness of crystals to do the crystal work, I combine my consciousness with the consciousness of the one. And that's how I get out. Now
I have a funny question.
I do that via my own higher fractal consciousness, let me say. Yes, and those are
Oh,
very extraterrestrial beings in 6 and 5D space and possibly even 4D space. And yes, I've photographed many of them through the crystal. And these will look like
wow,
faces, just like yours and mine, with eyes. Just like a lot of them, the eyes are
wow.
so realistic. It was just like, how did that even happen? Yeah.
I love to see people's eyes. Like I see you have very different. I have dark brown with a kind of golden tint, glow into it. You have, I think, bluish, light bluish, grayish. Yeah, very shiny, almost like a necklace. It's some kind of, matching that kind of vibration. But
Mm.
in your dreams, in your out-of-body experiences, your eyes change, correct? Can you see your eyes?
My whole being changes,
Your whole
sure.
beings. All
Yeah,
right.
no,
So
I'm
I have a funny
like
question.
I've been a 9 foot white haired wizard. I've there was this tiny Tim looking man. Just
Oh, wow.
always different. Very rarely, also Earth human, mostly extraterrestrial.
Wow, it's interesting. I
Yeah.
have a funny question. It's probably change. It's gonna change our conversation back to reality on Earth.
All
That's what's
right.
happening right now. And I wrote it long. That's not super long, but I'm not sure if I can read it correctly, so bear with me. Can smart, creepy blockchain Bitcoin, creepy I mean crypto coin, creepy blockchain Bitcoin, which is non-existent, buy you a virtual land somewhere, and and then my second question, they will offer you a fake crash. Like I think that's what's happening now. They will offer us a fake crash of these Bitcoin systems, and then the government will come in and say, "Oh, now we're gonna give you a secure crypto blockchain um, coin that is also not real, and you can buy virtual reality land with that coin because it's secure by the government."
Mhm.
Is that is that a question or is this not a really
Well,
question?
that's nowhere I'm going. I will tell you that. Reality is
Okay.
not singular, and we're creating reality as we go. So every time somebody says something like that's going to happen, understand that it's not an objective thing that's ever happening out there. It's a subjective thing that's happening in your awareness that you are manifesting as your experience. And so,
Mhm.
yeah, that's not anything I'll manifest for myself.
Right. But you think it's possible for those sheeple who can think about it, that's it's real tangible money, and eventually they'll be offered games or realities or land to buy with that kind of energy. For them, it's going to be possible.
Well, reality isn't singular. Reality occurs along a spectrum. And just like you were speaking earlier about the frequencies and there being more than one, reality is identical and it's a spectrum. So everybody is creating their own reality. And so, what happens for you, what reality you create for yourself via your thoughts and judgments and patterns that you won't let go of, or new ones that you're actually successful at bringing in, where that's all going to take you you can see, you can absolutely see if you want to, but the interesting thing about 3D is most people don't want to see. That's the joy, that's the fun about coming into 3D. You can't see. There's unknown, there's a large unknown. Everything is always in question.
Mm-hmm.
Which is something you
Mm-hmm.
can't do so much in higher frequencies. There's less that's in question and more that's already known, and so you can't do that. You can't play those kind of games. And so, yeah, what people will create for themselves is almost, it's infinite. It's endless.
Right.
And
Interesting.
can we
Wow.
visit those spectrums? Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Can we pop right back out of them into our own? Absolutely. We're doing it
And
probably.
yes, I guess you answered my question. People will be able to buy in those multiple virtual reality, which is Bank of America, I think is buying now, creating also. They'll be able to buy virtual money to buy land or buy something like buy your avatars, change your, upgrade yourself, your arms, your legs, whatever, in those games for this virtual money. People will be willing to play it because it's still consciousness.
Well, it's part of the process of moving from a 3D physical space into a 4D physical space where things are less physical. So instead of using hard cash, you're using something that has no physical representation. Um, right? We've been doing that a lot. And again, yeah,
Yeah.
that's part of the process of shifting from 3D toward 4D. And you can take the details of that shift in any direction that you want. But it's
Yeah.
important in my mind, it's important to realize that you are the one creating and riding your own wave. Um,
Right.
so there is no reality out there.
Yeah. So yeah, they've been preparing us with credit cards, which is also almost like virtual reality, money, which is nobody actually. It's just a computer, button you press and money appears or disappear. So we're
Sure.
used to that system. Now they are introducing a new system, and but it's still a control system because a TV, if you think about a TV, it's actually controlling what you think, how you feel, how you're supposed to dress, how you're supposed to act in this
Mhm.
reality on
But
Earth.
in order for it to do that, you have to first agree to play that game and
Yes.
go out and buy that television after you've worked to make enough money to actually do that, and then take the time and effort to turn that on
Yeah. I
and
have a
and
question for you though. Do you have a
and
TV?
be programmed. Sure.
Casey, do you have a TV? I have a question for you.
Do I? I'm sorry.
Physical. Do you have a TV in your place? Physical TV, like
Never,
actually.
never.
Never. Wow.
I had a father, yeah, who didn't let us watch TV,
Oh
and
my God. So see, that's
I'm
why
much older. Yeah,
you were
so
doing this from the very beginning because you were not poisoned by this nanotechnology. Because I've heard from Barbara Marciniak. I'm not sure if you heard of her.
sure.
Barbara Marciniak said, get rid of your TV because it collects nano dust in your apartment, nano particles. Even if it's unplugged, AC outlet, it still throws this poison. Like right now, I'm using this laptop, which is the only device I have. I don't have a cell phone or TV, but I'm still risking, to share this knowledge, with everybody. Like today's interview is going to be amazing. But again, if we are shadow banned, can anybody see us who are plugged in into the TV and they're watching TV, and
Mhm.
their consciousness will be probably just like switch. Nope, you cannot watch Alex and Casey talk because it's not for you. It's not good.
And to this, I would say, take back your power and get out of the victim mentality or the driver's seat that puts you at somebody else's command. We have to shift out of this in order to, again, carry that awareness that we create the reality, we create the wave, the patterns, and the details.
Yeah.
Every single bit. We do that with our thoughts, with our feelings, with our judgments, with what it is we choose to learn and not learn, and what balance that is. That would create a pattern, right? So we create all of these patterns, and we don't realize we're doing it. And
Yeah.
because we don't realize that we're doing it, we say that's a reality that's somewhere out there. It's not. I'm not doing it. It's already out there. It's set. It's fixed. It's put. And no, that's the illusion.
Right.
And one of the biggest illusions is that there's a they. Now,
Yes.
there is a they, but it's in a game kind of way. It's in a, okay, let's play this game kind of way. Fundamentally, there is
Okay.
no they, there's self. There's only ever self.
Interesting.
And self creates these players. Like, okay, I'm going to let there be a they that tries to do something bad and hold me back from this and block me from everything. And but we did that. We did that.
Yeah.
We put those
So
players
interesting.
there.
I had experience before your conversation with you a few days ago, and I'm not sure if it's something to do with what's going on between you and me because we've been uh, writing each other emails.
Mhm.
So 2 days ago, I am waking up every morning at 4:30. That's my time. So 4:30 I wake up, I start to meditate, and then around 6 o'clock I usually doze off just to see these pre dreams because it's a very good time at 6 o'clock, so 6:30 in the morning that I'll have some kind of dreams, and I don't call it out of body experience. But 2 days ago, as I'm coming out from the dream,
Mhm.
there's somebody knocking on the door in my room, and I can actually hear, can I come in? And I start to feel this, like you were saying, electrical vibration. I was like, oh, and it feels like I call it orgasmic vibration because I experienced it a few times before. It feels like my whole body vibrates, and then I wake up in this reality. I was like, who am I? So I
Mhm.
had this experience before we have this conversation today. And I'm not sure if it's you trying to come in and said, can I come in? I was like, I don't know who wants to come in. Like, do you have explanation? What was that voice? It sounded like male voice, I think. I'm
Mhm.
not sure if it's. Can you explain to
Mhm.
me my experience,
Well, one,
possibility of my experience?
I call it stasis. And yes, I can understand why somebody would call it bliss or orgasmic, but I call it stasis. Um, and two, yes, that was an OBE. It wasn't a very long one, but it was an
No.
OBE. And especially if you would have ridden those waves right back into physical space, you know, um, then you would have been perhaps even a little bit more sure. And there's a lot in those waves, a lot more data you can collect on even just a momentary shift,
Right.
from that experience back into your bed. It just takes seconds, right? But there is so much information in those
Yeah,
waves, in that orgasmic vibration.
you're right.
Yeah.
So
So
it's a
yes,
preview for me. So you think it's a preview for me that it's coming more and more often in the future?
it certainly could be an invitation. I would certainly accept it that way if I was somebody who was wanting to have this awareness and experience.
So that voice, can I come in? It's my true self, my pure consciousness actually manifested that voice. It was a male voice. I was like, can I come in?
Mhm.
And I was like, I don't know who you are.
It will stun you who it turns out to be each and every time. It's just so surprising.
It is
Yeah,
surprising.
the things I
Is
have
it
seen.
painful? Is it scary and painful sometimes?
Yes and no.
Okay. Very good question, I guess. You cannot answer it.
So the very big thing that we get used to in 3D physical space is privacy. The
Okay.
illusion that there is space between one thing and another thing. And when you
Right.
begin going out of body, especially consciously shifting out of body, consciously shifting back in the 3D space with all of this information, you begin to realize that there is not any space between one thing and another thing. And that will affect your central nervous system. And
Mm,
yes, that when I first
yeah.
started going out of body, put my central nervous system in shock. My whole body shook for a year and a half, almost 2 years. Yeah.
Wow.
So,
Okay, that's a
and the
good
physical
answer.
body has to process this. This is a part of the process of the physical body itself shifting from a 3D physical body into something
That's
lower.
such a cute conversation we have because right now the highest self or highest source or God is telling me like you have to reveal which room you were in. So I'm gonna ask you a question. In
Mm.
my 2 days ago experience, can you guess what room I was in and the voice of the a man trying to come in? Where was I?
Yeah, no,
What room?
I could guess, but do I know? No. Um,
Well, talking about privacy, just take a wild guess where I was. I'm gonna say it. I was in the smallest bathroom. In my
uh,
dream state, I was in the smallest bathroom. And you said privacy. I was like, holy moly. So they know how to shake things out. They are not making it like, oh, let's do it politely. He's in the living room or he's in some kind of big room. No, let's put him in the smallest bathroom and we're gonna come in with this electrical, what do you call it? Stasis.
they
Energy. And
absolutely will use things that will catch your attention. So
it
something
did.
that's
And now
out
you're
of the
talking about
norm.
it.
A
And now
part
you
of
answered my question.
a part of their job is raising your emotion to the point that you jump out of your sleep. So just like in physical
I
space, when
was.
something happens that's really, it's an alert, the living room's on fire, right? It's an alert. We come more alert, right? And so,
Yeah.
and that's that, moving into the sympathetic fight flight mode, for survival. And it's the same thing when you're inside. When you're in your complacency state, you're just asleep and you're perfectly happy being asleep, right?
Mm,
So
that's
part of
so
their
interesting. You
job is to
triggered me.
raise your emotion, but they can't raise it too
Well,
much, or you'll create fear-based scenarios and go into a nightmare. And so
right.
it's a nifty little balance, and bathrooms are often used. Was the point I was going to
Okay.
inevitably get to.
Privacy. Interesting. You
Mm.
just triggered me. I'm curious now if my parents were triggered in some very bizarre way because my parents were like I was born in this apartment where I am right now filming. I
Mm.
was in a hospital, but of course brought back here. You know, and my parents, they were living in the village, only a few miles away from here.
Yeah.
And when my sister was born, and she was like 3 years old, the house was on fire, set on fire. My parents were at work. My grandmother by herself was watching my sister, and she went out. And the fire, she didn't lock the chimney closely, so it started the fire in the house. And the neighbor came in and took my sister out of the window because she was afraid to step out. It was this special grass which I never seen in America. I think it's a really different grass that is very you feel stench for long hours.
Yeah.
So she was afraid to step out of the fire. So she was triggered, but my parents were triggered and they moved in here into the city, into a bigger town. And for them, it was a huge shakeup in the early 20s. A new family without a house, without any money, because all the money were like paper under the pillows, no banks, you know. So we started like from zero. We started from zero, and then of course later on, Soviet Union collapsed in 89, 1989, and all the money in the bank that they were saving, they were collapsed again to almost zero again. So we went through shocks like twice.
Mm.
And then I went to United States with $60 in my pocket, and I spent 17 years being a legal alien. 17 years. I was not able to get my paperwork done, and I was like struggling, struggling. I was like, holy moly, what is going on with my life? Like, I have a lot of trigger points.
So we're hitting on some commonality. So this may mean that we're being connected for this specific purpose and more. Yeah, but
Yeah.
OBEs being one, certainly, that being a main focus for me and what I'm here to help people do, which is to make the conscious shift, the 3D 4D shift. So most
Mm.
of consensus will be doing this in full awareness from 3D space, yet not really realizing they're vacating 3D space for some time. Yeah, but
So if are you at this point have any premonition or feeling of your future, like how your life on Earth is gonna play out, or you are ready to check out from Earth and go in some other places, or you are here to continue teaching and evolving and helping other people to
I'm here
evolve.
for absolutely as long as I can be. And I work hard to keep this body grounded more and
What's
more
it?
and deeper ways even. Yeah.
Right. Okay, so you're staying here. What is your favorite yogic exercises, or what helps you to stay physically
Well, let me
strong? Any
say,
kind of
I'm already out. I've already made the shift.
you're
So
already out. Okay.
when you make the shift, you know, when you're in 4D, you have access to 4, 3, 2, 1. When you're in
Okay.
5D, you have access to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So all of the lower dimensions are you're still able to access and come out. It's how our guidance can come into our awareness here in 3D space. So yeah, the shift for me has already been made. And now in the remainder of the wave, I mean, it's an instant. I mean, time is fascinating. We should have a conversation one day about
Uh,
time. And what I've
okay.
discovered, or where I am right now in my own understanding of the dimensions, especially 6 through 1D. 3 to 1D, I can now see our 3 dimensions of space. But galactic space, 4, 5, 6D, these are 3 dimensions of time.
Okay.
And the
Do you have any
experiences,
knowledge of how many dimensions there are, or there is to our knowledge yet to know?
I only work with the 7, the first through the 7th, because what's beyond that isn't compatible with the nervous systems that we currently have. It's just it's guess, it's
Mhm.
conjecture, it's a lot of hearing a lot of other people say things, and you sort of take on patterns of how you're going to see it, but without experiencing it. And so, yeah, our central nervous systems aren't fit for that. The furthest my central nervous system can go is consciousness in 7D projecting into a 6D experience. Our bodies are always in the lower dimension. My body here is in 3D space. My consciousness, I am in 4D. From that, I project into a body in 3D space. So your consciousness is always in a wider space than what your body sits in. And this is how I discovered the 3 dimensions of time and the 3 dimensions of space and the axis that they sit on, and
Then
how
I
to
have
use
another
that
question.
access, for shifting to where I want to go. Not that I'm very good at it. I just can
Not yet.
see, I can just see the structure, and because I can see the structure, I can use the structure to do what I want.
Mhm. So
Essentially.
this triggers me to an interesting question. I hope you're aware of Barbara Marciniak and her channeling of Pleiadians.
Sure.
She triggered me big time. Like listening to her knowledge, I was like, oh my God, she throws so many gems there. It was shocking for me. But one of the most shocking knowledge is that she revealed that she said, we come into your present, which is our past, to warn you about the tyranny that is happening in our world and many, many other worlds, many other dimensions.
Yes.
It's the AI which is taking over, and it does not allow you to be free. She's describing almost, I think, like a moon technology, Death Star technology, the wormholes and black holes, that we
Yeah.
can be trapped in those systems, not knowing that you still higher, like you said, 7 dimensions, because Ashayana or somebody else was saying there are 12 and maybe possibly even beyond 12 dimensions. But if we get trapped in this moon matrix, which is, by the way, we are using a zoom. Have you ever seen zoom in the reverse with the letter Z 90-degree twisted? It becomes the moon. We are using the moon technology right now to communicate, but it's a very important communication to trigger each
Patterns.
other and understand what is really going on and how the moon magic can trigger our consciousness, like just like TV can trigger and flex your consciousness by
But
its
you, but
projections.
you choose your relationships. One, I would say that you can never be trapped unless you volunteer to give up the awareness That's your
Hmm.
consciousness.
Well,
Another word for which is
let me throw
sovereign
this
or
at you.
free.
Let me throw this at you, Casey. At this point, becoming more and more aware that it's a possibility, that I was born into the preset family, almost like thrown like a kitten into the family to traumatize me from the very young age, to keep me locked. And all my handlers, I feel at this point, all my handlers, mother, father, sister, friends, lovers, they were set up from the very beginning. Like at this point, like I was, holy shit, I was in a relationship with robotoids. Like literally, I'm thinking they were not real humans, they were robotoids designed for my liking. Like, what would you say to that? Is that possibility that we, the strongest ones, maybe from the most high frequencies that
Mm,
come in here, we are still being played like kittens, like, because this reality, they really know what they're doing. They have so much technology to
mhm.
make you feel frazzled and not really understanding and amazing, but it's still, I think for me at this point, I think it's sun I can trust. And I wish I could share this picture that I have where I took a picture in a movie theater in New Jersey, and it says, God created man, man created immortality. And I placed this next to it ahead of the Egyptian gods. There were golden rays coming into the head, and then people had this kind of devices on top of the head, like a sun containers. They were
Mhm.
containing the, and I think at this point we're supposed to be glowing as golden lights, like a sun, as bright, but we are not. We are glowing with the moon technology. We have cell phones, smartwatches, earphones, microphones, and we
Mhm.
are surrounded by this technology that is sucking us dry. The moon is taking our life force energy,
Not the moon.
Just like Carlos Castaneda was saying, they're eating your auric field energy, soul energy. Have you read Carlos Castaneda? The last book he wrote was amazing.
Not in
The
detail. But
Flyers.
yes,
Oh,
I'm aware of the basic outlook
okay,
and of course of the
classic. Yeah.
man. Okay. Do you want to get back to the awareness of being outside the construct? I will rephrase the question. Do you want to be free, or do you want to stay in the illusion of being trapped?
Yeah, of course, freedom is desirable. It's one of the most desirable things. Yeah.
Okay, so in order to do that, you're going to have to let go of some of these stories. You're going to have to let go of some of these thought programs that others have put out. You're going to have to start from scratch and find out who you are. You're going to have to drop all of this other stuff and get yourself in meditation, into a daily meditation practice, and
Yes, but
and
what if it's not from
understand.
scratch? What if the AI is so smart it actually created all the versions for ourselves to be like, oh, it's me, it's a higher
AI
dimension,
is a
but it only
construct. AI is a construct. And if you want to get out of the construct, you have to let go of the construct players. You have to close your eyes and go inside yourself. You have to let go of the visuals and get good at sitting with consciousness until you feel the difference.
Mm. But whose
And
consciousness can we trust this process? Like when, you know, if AI comes in into you and like, may I come in? But like I didn't let it come in. What if it's not pleasant? What if in the beginning it could be fun, but what if it's not the best, purest, highest consciousness of God, and it will
okay, so
limit you or trap you?
when you're watching the television set and you're scrolling through all of the channels, you are in control with the control in your hand of which of those
But
pictures.
it's an illusion. It's an illusion. It's almost
Listen,
like if I
because
give you,
what you just said is an illusion also. So yes,
okay,
I'm going to confirm, but my point is that you have your hand on the control, and although all of these other channels you're letting go by, In that same way, when in a meditation, the idea of AI comes in, you give it what? Zero attention. Okay, it's only what you give your attention to that you then go into relationship with and begin to experience. But we've
Mm,
gotten very lazy with our habits of attention, haven't we?
yeah,
We just give them to
of
any
course.
random piece of data coming by. Just stop doing that. That's what meditation is. That's the practice of letting all of these random ideas go by and giving them no attention. Sitting yourself with your attention at the brow, paying attention to the fact that you're breathing, period.
Mm. So you
Okay.
triggered
And
me
when you
again.
can hold that, when you can hold that state of attention and the awareness of the fact that you're breathing, then you'll find yourself in relationship. But what you're in relationship with is the self. There's nothing in you but yourself, all the way back in through source. Okay. And so stay
Okay.
on your line and don't, keep giving your attention to all these random bits of data going by. That's the part we have to stop.
But it's almost like in the song of I don't know if you listen to that kind of music, but it's Lana Del Rey. She has a song Heroin. She has a phrase in that song. She actually beautifully describes people on heroin, how they fly to the moon again. She said it's hard to dream when absolutely nothing clear. It's hard to leave. No, not to dream. It's hard to leave when absolutely nothing clear. She's saying so. It's hard to dream in this reality. Also, she's saying like it's very difficult to dream. So if somebody comes, you come into somebody's place and they offer you, oh Stacy, nice to see you. Would you like a glass of Coca-Cola, Sprite, or Fanta? And you have been given choice. But if you don't take sugar or aspartame or any kind of poison, you'll be like, well, just didn't give me any choice. She asked me, would you like Sprite, Coca-Cola, or Fanta? So you have beautiful illusory illusion of choice, maybe even more like wine, vodka, tequila, but you want just pure water, and they don't offer you water without
And if,
fluoride.
and when you're aware of self, you're aware of the fact that you would prefer the water and you offer that up as your choice. But when you have no
Right.
command of your own attention, what do? You choose one of the options they just gave you. And so
Exactly, exactly.
so this is what meditation does. It puts you back in command of your own attention. And so that you are aware of what it is that you want, of who you
Mhm.
are, what you're working on. You don't leave you out of the equation. Most people in physical space give so much of their attention to the physical appearance of things that they're entirely lost. They can't even feel their own self. Ask somebody that's just a normal person what they're thinking, and they'll be like, "What? I don't know." you know, their attention is just out there. That's a
Right.
car. Oh, he's cute. What do I want for breakfast? Just yeah, they have no command of their attention.
Yeah.
And so again, this is what meditation's for. And
It's called
unless we counter, that beta 3D tendency with moments of meditation and being out in nature, if we don't balance that, we become imbalanced. And now I will bring your AI into the equation and let you know that's exactly how AI is created.
do you work with do you work with mentalities like headstands, any exercise that trigger spine, like back bends, or walk barefoot, or do sun gazing? Do you do any of all that stuff?
Yeah, I was born barefoot and I've lived my life barefoot. I've never worn
Nice.
shoes in my life. Um,
Very
I
cool.
adore inversions. And so it's, mostly what I work on when I'm on the mat. Sun gazing, yes, during my 2009 to 2014 was when the sun gazing came in. But I will say that that began as a spiritual discipline early on called Tritak. And this is a conscious gazing
Okay. Yes.
practice. And
Yes.
so you build that practice to working with light sources, a candle flame usually, and over years and even decades that can advance or graduate into sun gazing. And that was the process I followed.
Interesting.
Sun gazing is not for your average person, unless it's closed eye sun
Oh, I
gazing.
have a trick. By the way, Casey, you can share this. And I learned it a few years ago from the book that how to heal your claim even a person blind can heal the eyes with sun. In the beginning, they have to move their head side to side, maybe even rapidly. As you look at the sun and you blinking with your eyelids like a butterfly, like super quick. So when you do that practice, you can look at the sun even in the daytime when it's like 1 p.m., 2 p.m. You can move your head very fast, blink, 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 blink very fast. And then after 20 minutes, you will slow down with motion of your head. You will slow down with motion of your blinking. And then eventually, maybe after half an hour, 40 minutes, you can actually stop and open your eyes and look at the sun without being hurt. I never thought of that. I was holy moly. Like it's a super good practice that you can teach people how to easily do sun gazing after like a short period of time. Just moving the head and blinking.
But it's like going to the end of the story without starting the story to begin with. And it's a way that people can become damaged because what you can do in a moment with a practice can be undone in the very next moment with the tendencies that you're going to bring back into play afterwards. And those tendencies will then have what you just did cause damage to your physical vessel. And there's karma for that. And so, and I use that word lightly, by the way. Because we're in the story, we're in the game, and yes, so,
Yeah.
there will be a price to pay for it. Yeah, and it's like if right now I go up onto the roof and jump off, there's going to be a price to pay for that, right?
Yeah.
All right. My body is not fit for that right now. And most people's
Yeah.
bodies are not fit for anything involving sun gazing right now. So, what am I going to do? I'm not going to sun gaze. I'm not going to, i.e., go up onto the top of the roof and jump off. I'm just going to go out to the sidewalk and maybe jump off the curb and see how my feet
Yeah.
and ankles and knees
Also, they
feel.
suggest in the beginning, before this movement of the head and blinking, to close the eyelids and just look at the sun with the eyelids closed. Just the first into it.
Closed eye
And
sun
also
gazing is
morning,
fine,
very
but
early morning sun and evening sun, which is gentle. Morning, evening sun,
always with
also gentle
eyes
steps.
always with eyes closed. How does a person know? Here's something to bring to light. How does a person know when they're ready for something like sun gazing?
Well, I guess that consciousness and working with the intuitive modality within the brain will be like, oh, that sounds interesting. It triggers them. I think most of us are working with intuition. When you intuitively, like, look at the animals. They are drawn to the sun. When the sun shines through the window, they'll be laying right there in the sun. They know something good about the sun. There's healing something.
The sun is
And
amazing,
maybe
but those
not,
animals aren't gazing with their eyes up at it either.
they
They're they're
close, yeah, they
they're,
rest in
they're
there, the whole
smart.
bodies. Yeah, we
that's
also
for that's for
go,
a higher consciousness being. It's definitely not for a 2D body. Definitely have to be an advanced stage of 3D, on the verge of making that shift into 4D. And that's going to be somebody who can hold that alpha wave, who can hold their own point of attention still, regardless of how much is going on around them. They're going to be somebody who can meditate. And if you can't meditate, why would you sun gaze? Um,
mhm.
so start at
Well,
the
it triggered
beginning.
me. Let me share this story. What I started with sun gazing. I've heard from somebody who was a yogi who was talking about his yogi, who was able to sit almost like in a desert area, like where the sand, nothing, no grass. He would be sitting from the sunrise to sundown, which is you know, palms and feet. These areas which is never get tan, even if it's a African American person, they absorb the most of the sun energies. And
Mhm,
he was sitting in a meditative pose with legs crossed, so the soles of the feet are also pointing towards the sun. And he would place the palms without any mudras,
mhm,
just palms up and all day long containing the sun. And he was actually eyes open,
mhm.
not blinking, and he would be staring at the sun from the morning to the evening. When I heard that, I was like, wow, yogis can do that. If they can do that, I can do that. Like ego, like I can do that. Well, I can get myself to that point eventually in the future, but before you have to practice slowly to be in a desert, hot, all day long, containing the sun in your eyes and your souls. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
sun gazing is an advanced practice, and it's a
Yeah.
practice of Tritak, and it's how Tritak culminates. But you don't start Tritak with sun gazing. You start Tritak with sitting on the floor and arm's distance in front of you, placing a bindu, a large dot, and putting your attention there and leaving your eyes open until they water. Okay.
Mhm.
And that's how you start. Okay. That's how you begin to build a consciousness and state of attention
Towards it.
and energy structure and physical body that can handle sun gazing. And even then, this
Okay,
takes
so maybe what I'm
build the
sharing
body
is
that
just
can
for
do
my
it
body.
without damage.
I I can do it, but most people maybe not can. After 20 minutes, I can do it, like blinking and moving the head. So maybe other people cannot. So okay, I get it. I get it.
What I'm
My
saying
next question.
is it doing it is very different than doing it without damage, without karma,
Hmm.
without a price to pay.
Right.
So
Yeah.
there's lots of things that we can do. But we're
Yeah.
no better off. In fact, we've just set ourselves way back because now we've jumped the gun. And the
Yeah.
first thing that your own guidance structure will do is send you right back to scratch because they won't allow you to
I'll
continue.
share. I'll share with you my personal experience. A few years ago, I was teaching this group of ladies, and they were older ladies, 70, 80, and the student who was 80, and the other one, she was like 70 something, from Moscow, and this one was local. So I have like 17 people in the room. So I thought like I do it myself, so why can't they do it? So it's like, okay, so we're gonna do this exercise. We're gonna be breathing, moving the spine left to right, inhale left, exhale right. So we were doing this for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and at the end I was like, take a deep inhale and bend backwards. And don't breathe as long as you can. So we all did that. We take a deep breath, bend backwards, and two ladies just fell off their chairs. And I was like, "Holy shit,
Oh,
what have they done?" But they came back. I mean, it was not like a huge deal, but everybody was like, "Oh my God, he doesn't know what he's doing." So I was expecting that if I can do it easily, everybody can do it, but some people can't.
no, in fact, most people can't. And so learning how to teach in a room where you may have beginners, intermediate, and advanced practitioners, as well as people in bodies that are less capable. Maybe you have somebody in advanced spiritual discipline, but has a body that's not as capable as some other bodies. And so you'll have a mix of people in the room. And so
Yeah.
being able to teach your class and say, if this, then that, and if this,
Yes.
then that, and then if this, then that.
A lot of ifiness, yes. True.
Well, no, you just show everybody where to start. Now stay here if you're feeling any dizziness, and if everything seems fine, deep breath in, look up,
Yeah.
and if there is no dizziness, you know,
Yeah.
bend back. So, take them there. Just don't run there. Yeah. Yeah. No, I
Yeah,
have
I'm
learned that too.
I'm a
People
very
have to learn
like a
their.
bulldozer. I'm a very like a bulldozer teacher, and I'm realizing it now. It's like, oh my God, this is who I am. I mean, this is I am that I am. I'm very bulldozer truck driver. Like, come on, everybody, you can be like me. You can do it. Headstand right now. And people, like, no, no, we're not ready for headstands. It's like, no, you can do it.
Yeah.
Get to the wall.
Well, headstand stage one, stand, fold forward from the waist, bend into the L shape. A lot of people will
Yeah.
stay right here, right? And then those who can move forward from that will, and those who can move forward from the next phase will. And now you've addressed everybody in the room, and everybody has been given the instruction, and now they take on their own karma for what it is
Yeah.
they choose to do, push themselves or stay where is more intelligent. These are all things that, we each have to
Oh, we
learn.
have an amazing conversation. I only had 6 questions, and I keep on writing more and more, and 1, 2, 3 papers now, like small papers. And I have one more question that came up to me, which is related to spiritual practice, scriptures. Have you ever read Upanishads?
Mhm.
You did. So there's supposedly 108 authentic Upanishads, and then there are 200 altogether Upanishads. They are very cryptic knowledge. So when I started to read them, I was like, oh my God, there's a Bhagavad Gita in it. Bible is in it. It's like it's an original source. It's very, very old, ancient, and it's fascinating. It triggered me in so many different ways. So when I was reading, I'm not sure if it was a Upanishads or some other one, but they were supposed to be describing there are only three paths towards God. There are only three paths. There is a path of the sun, there is a path of the moon, and there is a direct path. So in a path of the moon, they describe that you will go to heavens after death and experience your meritorious deeds, or you say karma, meritorious deeds what you've done on earth in heavenly pleasures, only to come back again onto earth and relive it again. That's a moon path. Then there's a second path, which is a sun, where you evolved so much on earth, you actually after death going to the heavens that are sunny heavens, and there you can meditate and go to God, go to source. And then they also describe the third direct path that you can become enlightened directly right here on earth, and then you live the rest of your life because you have still prarabdha vasanas. I'm not sure if you know the term prarabdha vasanas, something that you've chosen. Like, for example, we've chosen to be male and female. Like, you're a female, you cannot be a male. So that's your decided choice, desire before life, and that will be fulfilled. And then be in California, stuff like that, and desires. And once you reach enlightenment after true meditation on earth, you are directly with the source. You still live like everybody else, but you are already one with the source. You're one with God. So have you heard of that? Thinking, what is your thought process on that idea?
Well, one, very few entities ever go back to source. It's not something that most entities choose. Most entities choose to stay within the dimensional existence, which is where consciousness experiences itself.
My mother said it's boring here. When she comes to my place, she's like, it's boring here. I have no TV, no cell phone. So maybe people like going to the source, it's boring. They think it's much better to play all these different games.
Going back to source means um, your entire individual consciousness, and I don't mean your person here in 3D space, I mean your soul, or maybe even your oversoul, um, gives up its existence, is remerged in source, and source uses that to shoot out another player, essentially, another individuality. And yeah, no, very, very few entities ever choose this. Two, we already are the one that is the all. We already are. And once you come into even the slightest awareness of this through experiences like the out of body state and, consciousness beyond 3D earth life and et cetera, you begin to see the fun and its intrigue in my instance of the dimensional structure itself. And you just want to explore that dimensional structure. What goes into creating something like that? I mean, it's
Must be
just
God.
mind. I mean, how does something like time, like a concept that doesn't even exist, get thought up and brought into being. I mean, how does that even happen, and who does that, and where is the level of consciousness that has this capacity, and how fun. And if it's
It's fun.
there, it means that I have some association, relationship, connection with that
Yeah.
level of
Talk about
consciousness
time.
that does
Just
that, and
oh,
that takes you into the creator beings, and who you
oh,
are as a creator being, um, and all of this other stuff. And here in 3D physical space, we experience ourselves in one point in time, in one place at a time. Yeah, it's a very limited experience. But as you begin going out of body, one of the fascinating, the thing that fascinated me the most when I went out of body, besides the shift itself,
mhm.
most people aren't even aware of the shift. Um,
Yeah.
they're just aware of landing locations, physical spaces, whether it's 60 physical or 40 physical, it doesn't, matter. They're more aware of the physical spaces, but I tend to be more aware of the shift itself, one, and I'm almost forgetting where that was going. Um, Let me see if I can get that back. Okay, so one of the things that I was able to do in there was hold what I call synchronous states. So I reached a level of consciousness in there that was at an expanse that allowed me to experience myself in, as many as 4, 5, 6 bodies and 4, 5, 6 physical locations,
Wow.
doing different things all at once, all at the same time. That
Wow.
experience is fascinating to me, and you only experience it in the shift. And so that means you have to be in a brainwave structure that is spectral.
Mm, fascinating.
And what I uh, think that I cognize is that's like a 60 sort of awareness, high 60 sort of consciousness is able to experience the bodies that they're inhabiting in different worlds simultaneously. But I think it's not everybody in 60 space that does this. It's a specific type of being in 60 space that does this, and I'm that type of being. Which is why even my physical construct is able to hold on to that awareness even through the shift back into this limited 3D space. So
Fascinating.
I'm
Amazing.
just able to hold all that data, and I'm able to make it back into physical space with it, mind blown. And
Yeah.
yeah, the frequencies
So
and the
talk about
harmonics.
time. Talking about time, you triggered me to look at the time and date.
Oh.
In the time, I don't see anything here in Belarus. It's like 8 o'clock in the morning. But I never thought. I thought, oh, it was a big day we just missed. I was supposed to speak to James from China, but he canceled on me. It was a 2 2 2 2 2 on the 2nd of February. I was like, this is really important day, but yeah, nothing really happened big. And I'm looking today. So today it's not a special number, but then I was like, wait, 402 2022, because in Belarus we have with time day, months, and then a year. So day is 4, then it's a 2, and 2022. It's a 0 between 22, but you can add 22 to 4. So then this whole number will be 424. So we are speaking today on a number which is lower and then going to higher. 424. And then when you add those numbers together, you get number 1. 4 plus 2. You know. So number 1 is the beginning. It's also number of everything. By the way, I sometimes tell people watch. It's a horrible movie, Hollywood movie, Lucy, which is very violent. But she gets upgrades with her brain with this blue drug that she's taken. And at the end, the police officer asking her in the cell phone, "Lucy, where are you?" And she's like, "I am everywhere."
Mm-hmm.
So when you go with one with the source, you are, I guess, every. But Lucy in the sky with diamonds, I think it's a trick. It's the moon. She can only go so far in the dimensions. She cannot go to the most high. She can corrupt the most lower frequencies, which is it's a limitation. Like we are destroying the animals. Like we have most people, they'll destroy the animal for food, and that's a finite technology. You have to rely your happiness on somebody's unhappiness. You have to rely your happiness on somebody's misery, and that's a finite system. That's a moon system. It's a trick. So my idea is now go to the sun, go to the source, to the most high. That's an infinite. God is infinite, and yet He allows a finite system to be within infinite system. This is all. It allows a finality to still live and exist and learn its lessons. Like I used to eat meat and destroy animals. It took me 4 years to become vegetarian. Like slow process, not easy. I was breaking my consciousness, like or shedding my negative consciousness. But I did it. It took me a while, but I did it. So to be everywhere, to be one with God, oh my God, I can only imagine that state. Enlightenment. It's enlightenment. And they talk about enlightenment in the movie Lucy by talking in a professor point. Professor saying, well, look at the animals. If the environment is good, they will procreate. If the environment is not good, they might choose immortality. And I think in my choice, I'm looking at this whole place, like people are like, oh, you should have children. I was like, children to bring in this reality? It's like, no way. I choose immortality to get to the most high because just giving children, they'll steal their children from, they'll throw them in school, say, I'm a bad father, the court system, and it's so messed up here. Like, anything you have, they can come in and take it away from you if they really want.
And
I'm
another
at this
way
point,
to
like,
see
take
that,
everything.
another
I
way
don't
to
want it.
Another way to see that, I'll just say real quick, I didn't mean to interrupt, was just
Uh-huh.
that a lot of different people are playing a lot of different games. And through these games, they're learning lessons that are missing from their own learning program. And so this is why nothing wrong is happening. This is why nothing untoward is happening. This is why there is no they that is supposedly against you. um, so when you get to although there is a they,
Yes,
this
I
is
know.
this is the game. This is the game. And so
Uh-huh.
long as you're realizing that it's the game, if you're not ever forgetting that this is the game, then you'll play, or you'll not play that part of it, but you're going to play this part of it because this looks like something I need to learn. And
Maya,
then
illusion,
you
Maya.
see, then you see the purpose for the 3D space.
Yeah.
Okay, and all of a sudden there's not a good and bad and a right and wrong, a sun and moon, where one is wonderful and the other's not.
Advaita. Advaita, non-duality. Yeah, Advaita, I can imagine is beautiful. The state of non-duality. When you're enlightened and you
Uh,
just, everything is God all the time, 24/7. There's nothing but God.
well, and that consciousness is creating players in spaces to play games, and but you don't get away from the fact that this is a source being everyone and everything, not a good guy and a bad guy. It's source. Source is that bad guy over there. Source is that good guy over there. Source is the AI. Source is the well, what my
By
group
the way,
calls
I
it.
just got a lot of sweet saliva from Kechari mudra talking to you. I forgot to, do the Kechari. It's so sweet. So I guess you're triggering me in a very interesting way in the brain because the brain creates this mana from
Soma.
heaven, mana
Uh-huh.
from Soma, Amrit, nectar of immortality. Yeah, and I just emailed my other girl in, she's in somewhere close to you in the United States, Adrienne, about the ocean milk and the churning of the Milky Ocean with a snake. It's a myth, but I was like, is it really a myth or this is a metaphor for Kechari Mudra that you're supposed to turn the Milky Ocean,
Mhm.
with your snake, which is your tongue, and get that nectar of immortality, Amrit.
Mhm.
It's delicious. So
Mhm.
I've been eating myself. I've been eating my own brain.
Well, I'll tell you, it's been an hour and a half. Why don't we go ahead
Yes.
and conclude here for today? And
Yeah,
if
it's been
you
amazing.
want to continue this, just shoot me an email and we'll do it again.
Absolutely, but please stay on the line. We'll finish it, and I want to talk to you privately for a few more seconds.
Okay.
And yeah, we can finish the recording. Thank you everybody for watching. Much love to all of you. Subscribe to Casey, watch her videos, and wait for her book to come out soon. And I will see you next time. Much love to all of you.